Oh, yeah.
No, Chad told me to start it when the meeting starts.
It don't matter. I just started.
Okay. So it's going now? How long's your cord? Can it reach over here?
Here. You don't have to tighten that up. You don't have to tighten that up.
Did you know we was on a 2-hour delay?
I did just now. You don't have to put that
Yeah, sure.
John, got him right there. John, can you leave the water?
Sorry?
Can you leave the water?
Absolutely.
Here you go. I'll take a look.
Who is that one?
I'd like to welcome you to the January 5th regular board meeting of the West Clark Community School Board of Trustees. We will have a pledge and an invocation, so if you please stand. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, we thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. Thankful, Father, for the turnout we have, and Lord, we just look forward to a good new year that you give us safety and help us, Father, to make the best decisions for our students. In Jesus' name, amen.
Mr. Basham here, Ms. Kaufman here, Ms. Gunther, Mr. Guernsey, so I'm here, school central office administrators and board attorney, Mr. Gillenwater. We're going into emergency additions to the agenda.
Okay, yes, I've got a couple under the consent agenda. Roman numeral X, letter G. I'd like to add some language to the approval of Henryville campus drainage improvements with Mark Guthrie Construction for $19,521. Also, I'd like to insert under the consent agenda, in between M and N, we're going to create an N. Essentially, all of those will go down in one letter. We'd like to insert the non-renewal of Rock Creek food service contract effective at the end of the 16-17 school year. Those are the only additions I have and revisions I have to the agenda, Mr. President.
I need a motion to approve the agenda as written.
I'll make that motion.
Motion for a second.
No, sir.
Second, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Okay, at this point in time, we've come to the ceremonial oath of office for the 2017 elected board members. Mr. Mike Gillenwater proceeding.
All right, Mr. Basham and Ms. Gunther, would you like to stand and raise your right hand? Say your name and repeat, say aye and repeat your name.
I, Joseph W. Basham,
I, Crystal Gunther,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of Indiana
and the Constitution of the State of Indiana
and the laws of the United States
and the
and
laws
the laws
of the United States
and the State of Indiana.
and the State of Indiana.
I will faithfully execute the duties of my office
I will faithfully execute the duties of my office
as a member of this governing body.
as a member of this governing body.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations again, Mr. Basham, Mrs. Gunther. We now come to the portion of the reorganization of the board for the election of the 2017 board officers. We have nominations that we need to entertain for president, nominations for vice president, and nominations for secretary. Each of those are voted on, motions made, seconds, and voted on individually.
There are nominations for president.
I'd like to recommend Joe Basham for president.
I have a motion on the floor. Need a second.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nomination for vice president.
Do I do that? No longer president.
I'll entertain a motion for vice president.
I'll make a motion for Brian Hirsch.
I have a motion on the floor. I'll entertain a second.
I'll second.
We have a second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I vote. And now we have a nomination for secretary.
I'll nominate Mr. Kaufman.
I'll second.
We have a motion. We have a second by Mr. Basham. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, at this point in time, we need to shift seats or gap.
We're gonna shift next meeting.
Yeah.
We'll shift next meeting.
Yeah.
We're,
Okay. All right, well, at this point in time, we have reorganization items of the board. Now, this needs some discussion. Items A through F needs some discussion from the board, and then we'll entertain a motion if they're, after discussion, if everyone's in agreement, a motion, a second, and a vote. So the first thing is dates, times, locations of regular board meetings with the month selection for Borden and Henryville locations.
We were looking at changing our board to November.
We were, and Mr. Dyer can explain that. Essentially, it's more for budgeting purposes than anything else, looking at moving our board and meeting to November rather than October. The way we've been doing it causes a little bit of confusion with the State Board of Accounts, the DLGF, and if God willing, Mac's going to be here for a long, long time. But if anything were to ever happen and anyone were to come in, they probably would say, why are we doing it that way? So makes more sense, I think, for us on the timeline for our budget approval process for a November board meeting.
Keep the same
At
location.
Borden, same location. Okay. We also have item B, dates, times, well, we need to go ahead, that's location of November Borden.
Henryville, April still good.
Historically, we've had April as the Henryville board meeting. Need to choose dates, and dates meaning, you know, they're all subject to change as conflicts arise, as we all have complicated schedules from time to time. But we need to have dates and times, and as I've mentioned in the past, typically you would want to choose your regular board meeting for your claim docket and for all of those things. For bank reconciliations, you're going to want to wait until, you know, we got a bank statement, I think, today. It typically takes several days after the end of the month to get those statements in, and then to process all of those reconciliations, especially for end of month and end of year considerations. So with that in mind, if you're going to want to talk about different days of the week, that's certainly possible, but I would recommend waiting until the second week of every month for your regular board meeting. Day and time is completely up to you all, but that my recommendation would be at least waiting for that second full week.
So right now it's the second and fourth Thursday.
Right now, they're the second Thursday of the month for our regular meeting, and fourth Thursday of the month for special meetings.
Keep it the same.
It's good.
So keeping the Thursdays, second and fourth. What about your time? You know, again, all things can change, and we advertise accordingly. But for consistency purposes, we want to go ahead and say 6:30 for executive and 7:30 for regular. That's been the majority of the time.
This is good. Brian, with the new bridges now, would 6 o'clock push you for executive, where we can look at maybe bringing our regular meetings down to 7? And then if we do run over it, that gives us a little more leeway. Mike, does that affect
That
you?
works for me. I'm not, yeah, we can just advertise the change, yeah, if you want to do it.
Any-
So 6 and 7, so 6 or 7.
Yeah.
All right, that leaves us, I think, to be, and I've heard some conversation already about the special work session staying at the fourth Thursday of the month. If you want to just carry that. Sometimes we don't need an executive, and we've had that conversation when we set the date officially at the meetings. If you wanted to not have executive and have a longer work session, you certainly do that. We've been known to have a 5:30 executive until 6 and start the special at 6. Do you want to shoot for that? Do you want to start trying to have your special work session meetings at 6 p.m. as a rule?
That works.
Okay, and then if executives needed, we'll back up accordingly. So 6 p.m. start for those special work sessions on the fourth Thursday of the month.
Not to confuse the matter, but since we already got conflict for this month, should we talk about that now or later in the agenda?
I've got it down. We can talk about it in reports if you want. Board compensation, this is status quo from 16. $2,000 a year plus $112 for regular meetings and $62 for special meetings. Item D, this is the same bonding amounts for Mrs. Patty Kelly, our assistant treasurer, and Mr. Dyer, our treasurer, $50,000 each bonds. Item E, Mr. Gillenwater has provided you all with his retainer fee for 2017. It's the same as 2016. We appreciate that, Mr. Gillenwater.
It's the same as 2014.
We thank you.
We thank you. We do. And then that takes us to letter F, the appointment of the News and Tribune as our official board publication newspaper for 2017. Again, same as 2016.
I do have a question on Mr. Gillenwater. It says that we get 2 hours per month. Can we typically go over that?
Always,
Okay.
always.
So would
But
we need to
it
look at
would be-
bumping that up?
Well, in essence, what you're doing is you're paying me by the hour. And, you know, that really doesn't affect things. You won't pay any more or less if we raise or lower that.
Okay.
Some months we don't work as much, but, I mean, we're a big organization, we got a lot of employees and a lot of moving parts. A lot of corporations your size don't have a full-time attorney. Most of them don't, I don't think, but, so I don't know that it would really save any money to change that. We can talk about that next year, talk about it this year if you want. Just call me a dog.
That's all I have for reorganization items.
Do we need a motion to approve that? All right, we need a motion from the floor. Do that.
Make the motion to approve.
We have a motion from Mr. Kaufman. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Mr. Gurns. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same, 5-0.
Okay, reports. Normally at our regular meetings, we have our Corporation Students of the Month. With this being a week early for this is the first Thursday of the month, we just came back to school, and to have the teachers and the committees that establish those criteria and announce the winners to the schools, we're going to wait until the special work session in January to recognize our Board of Students of the Month. So you'll see that taking place. I've got down to be determined for January 26th. You're going to see here in just a little bit, it may not be the 26th. We may have a conflict there that we want to talk about. I do want to take this time to congratulate, and I think I see Mrs. Myers back there somewhere in the audience. This is Minds in Motion. I taught third grade. I ran a group of third graders every day through Minds in Motion, so I see the power of crossing the zone of axial parallel, and I see the balance of focusing and doing those things that are left brain and right brain and crossing those things with Minds in Motion. They've taken it to a whole other level at Silver Creek Primary School. If you haven't been there, I would encourage you to go there and watch the kids go through. Essentially, it's a maze. But it's a maze of a lot of fun activities, a lot of different things that the kids are doing. They do it on a daily basis. It's a rotation that they do, maybe on the front side or back side of breakfast or lunch. a lot of kids going through there, but they were recognized by the Department of Education for promising practice. So that was a recognition that Silver Creek Primary, I think, and under Mrs. Meyer's leadership, rightfully deserves. So congratulations to the primary. And if you want to go through it, go through it. Okay, reminder of upcoming events, Saturday, January 14th, that's Dr. Martin Luther King Scholarship Breakfast. We always have a table for that. It rotates sites. This year it's at the Renaissance Academy. If you'd like to go, I encourage all of the board and bring your spouses or significant others. If you need to RSVP with me, just make sure no later than January 6th so we can get your nameplates. I know Mr. Basham, if you don't know at this point in time, you certainly just shoot me a text or give me a call. Joe and okay. The next event I have is the first of one of two conflicts. Thursday, January 26th from 6 to 8:30. New board member orientation meeting at Greater Clark Community Schools Admin Building. It's going to take place on the same day as what would normally be the fourth Thursday special work session. Therefore, we have a conflict, and I think Mrs. Gunther has said, obviously being a new board member, she would like to go. Mr. Basham, you said you would like to go to that meeting. So we have a quorum, but we don't have much wiggle room there, and I would entertain trying to change that date
Possibly move it to the 25th.
to Wednesday the 25th, same time,
Brian,
6 p.m.
Crystal, you're also scheduled.
Okay, so instead of Thursday, January 26th for the special work session, we're going to make that the 25th, Wednesday. This is an exception, but those do happen. We'll advertise that. We'll put that on our website. We'll send those tweets and things out as well. The next that I have is March 25th through the 27th, 17. That's the National School Boards Association Annual Conference in Denver, Colorado this year. Early bird registration is due by Tuesday the 10th. I've heard from Mr. Basham and Mrs. Gunther that they would like to go. I put the RSVP packets in your handouts. If anyone else would like to go, we'd ask that you try and let us know by Tuesday. You certainly can make a decision later, but it'll cost us a little bit more money. But I've sent that out many, many times, and I haven't heard anything else. So I've got you guys are ready to RSVP. Okay, at this point in time, we've got cash fund balances from Mr. Dye.
Due to the early board meeting and that we're not reconciled yet, it's also the end of the year, so we will have those reports for you on the 25th.
Okay, that kind of speaks to why, we were having normally the second Thursday of the month, so Mac will be bringing those on the 25th. Dr. Reed, Curriculum and Instruction.
Thank you, Mr. Shank. I just have one item. There are a number of tasks that need to be performed for curriculum and instructional improvement. And since we now have a new board member and we've gone through reorganization of this board, I'd like to ask now that if the board still intends to seek consistency across the district, and specifically to explain that to the audience. In the past, we have allowed separate campuses to select different books, and recently the board has, the previous board wanted to have consistency in these kinds of items. So what that meant was then we wanted to have the same book in any particular grade level across the entire district. And that does create some challenges of building consensus. This year we have science textbook adoption, and so I have a number of committees that, thanks to the Teachers Association, they have worked hard in putting these committees together for me. We're ready to kick those committees off, and if you wish to still maintain that kind of consistency across the district, it will have impact on how we conduct our meetings as we look into science textbooks. Another issue, as an example, would be novels. I have a committee, again, that the association has put together for us so that we can take a look at novels that we are using across the district and get some consistency there as far as at what grade level we're using what novel, and that it's consistent regardless of the campus that you're at. So that's the only thing I'd like to ask the board for some direction on, so I can move forward on, actually, there's another, quite a few other items, and I'll bring you a list at our next board meeting of those kinds of issues that we are seeking to develop this consistency. So is that still a directive of the board?
I think the last couple of years, that's more or less what we've been trying to stress, where we've got same offerings to offer students in kind.
I mean, what are the teachers thinking of this consistency? What's their feedback?
Well, I think there's mixed opinions about it.
I think this will lend itself to our strategic planning heavily as we continue to, at our board retreat about 18 months ago, this was a big focus then. It needs to be revisited on now, how it applies to goals and action steps through strategic planning. But it is a shift, it is a change. And change, I've said this before, I have a book on my desk called Change is Great, You Go First. Nobody wants to go first when it's time to change, and nobody wants to be the one that has to bend more at an angle than someone else. And that's what I think we see sometimes from the three campuses, is when we make that shift and we make that change, we feel that it's better from a centric district level. We feel that it's better for all students, taking all students into account. But again, we know that that's going to be resisted at times.
What are the other school corporations, surrounding school corporations doing?
Very similar things as far as when we look at curriculum and instruction, we look at technology being in equilibrium, and we look at consistency with textbooks. A good example is the textbook, because that's what we've seen with mass pricing and mass purchasing. We receive greater discounts. We're not all doing the same, or not all doing different things and trying to order smaller amounts of different textbooks or different devices. Jerry will tell you, as on this docket, you see the innovation planning grant. As we decide what devices we want to use at different grade levels, you can imagine if we weren't centric and we weren't going to establish that consistency, you may have one teacher at one building wanting Nooks, and another teacher in another building wanting iPads, and another teacher in another building wanting Surfaces. They all cost a little bit different. They all have different strengths and weaknesses. So for consistency's sake and purposes, that's why I think some of those things have to be derived from the board and then passed out to all of the campuses in unity. Any questions for Dr. Reed? John? Anything else?
That's it, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Reed. And now we've got Mr. Burhalter, Operations and Transportation.
Thank you, Mr. Shank. In the wake of today's cancellation, we went ahead and wanted to increase the climate and the mood in the room when we sent out our 2-hour delay a little earlier. So we did want to get that out early, so that way we weren't sending that out later tonight at close to 10 o'clock or early in the morning or whatnot. That we give our families time to prepare for that. So, but with that being said, all of our messaging went through, of course, smooth this morning, and hopefully tonight as well. Our crews did a great job clearing all parking lots and whatnot, so I'm proud of them. And when it comes down to it, when there's a challenge put in front of them, they always rise up and step up to the challenge. Like I said, we're very proud of them. And now tomorrow being our first 2-hour delay, of course, we will have a few challenges to overcome, whether it be with lunches and whatnot, but at least hopefully now with the proper notification, we can prepare properly for that and make sure we put our best foot forward. In talking with the board, of course, I know this is something we've brought up in the past as far as the possible upgrading to the baseball lights at Silver Creek High School. A direction I would want to entertain from the board is whether or not we would like to possibly look into getting an architectural rendering on exactly what that upgrade may entail. With your permission, I'd like to go ahead and potentially start down that path. And if I'm given a different direction, we can.
What does that cost us?
Depends. We may be able to do it pro bono, possibly. But I can get those numbers to you if that's okay. I think it'd probably be a good start at least. So.
What numbers to us? The cost of architectural or the cost of
architectural?
So that delays it another month then.
Potentially. I mean, I can work as quick as we can, so I can probably.
I just don't understand why it couldn't be pro bono. I mean, if I was a firm putting, we talked about this earlier about if I was the company putting the lights in, I certainly should be able to tell architecturally. So I would suggest it be pro bono and bring us back February the final cost.
Okay.
And is that
you can
doable?
I think we can embed that in an RFP, honestly. I think if we put that in an RFP formally, that we want an architectural lighting engineer to be a component of that proposal. We don't think it's gonna be over the litmus that the board has set for us to not be able to do proposals and have to do sealed bids. So I think we probably can put out a request for proposal, and during that process, we can just say, we want an engineering study done. We also want the lights at a certain lumen output and capacity as part of that RFP. And then typically, anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks, we'll advertise. If we want to advertise and do our due diligence, we want to advertise probably at least 2 consecutive weeks in the paper, and then we'll send that out to anybody and everybody that we can that's in that realm. I would think, Tom, probably within 3 weeks, 4 weeks, we could have the proposals. That could just be part of it. We need them to us by, if all goes forward, then I think February 9th is that's the second Thursday of February. So we can just have those on that prior Monday, probably the prior Friday, so we can get that to the board. So we'll just work backwards there. Okay.
Can I add something to that? What would it cost us to look at installing lights at our other 2 campuses? Could, somewhere along the same process, could we get a cost for that?
Certainly 3 RFPs, more per campus.
Go through the same
What's the opinion of the board on that as far as having that done?
I mean, it's on the ECA request of something they want, so at least you have the number. We don't have the dollar, let's get the number.
Okay. Okay.
Tom, can I ask you, how long will it take once we get the RFPs back to actually get the work done, if that is what the board chooses?
I couldn't answer that. That would be a question I'd have to move myself to the vendor itself. So, of course, if you are talking about, possibly ordering poles to match, I don't know if that's something you literally can get off the shelf or they have to be fabricated. Lighting, obviously, those things, obviously can be bought from different amounts of vendors and whatnot, but I couldn't answer that. Of course, weather pending too, couldn't answer that, so no.
But if at least down here, if it's on existing poles, then it's going to put.
Yeah.
We can put that into the RFP, that if the board decides to go that route and accept a proposal and it's signed, documents written up that we want the work to be completed by, Coach Decker, you're in the audience, by
March 15th, spring break, somewhere in
by
there.
spring break.
Any other discussion on that? Okay. And then just kind of switching gears to college career readiness. Of course, we're moving forward with our Connexus program up at Interville. Our next step right now for the month of January is to gather interest inventories from students and especially from parents. We're actually meeting with our guidance counselors and our building principals, of course, are invited as well, on January 12th, and basically trying to create a game plan on exactly what the best procedure is going to be for the remainder of January to basically get the word out to students. And of course, we're targeting current freshmen that will, of course, be sophomores next year. But more importantly, we need to target their parents as well. That way they are aware of what this program entails and what kind of opportunities that they may present to their children. So like I said, we're going to be working with them at the building levels. Those meetings or conferences or whatnot will begin hopefully in January, because I know just from the building side of things, of course, they want to try to get the schedules built as quick as possible and get kids placed in classes, and especially on pathways. So we're going to try to put the accelerator down and try to get that done by the end of January.
How are those students going to be selected?
It'll be very, very similar to Prosser. That's another thing we're going to discuss on the 12th as well. But I know Prosser, they select students. Of course, they look at attendance. That's one of the main things. Discipline, obviously, is another thing. GPA also. So again, we're going to pretty much follow the same criteria as Prosser does. Good question.
Can I ask you a question of the work ethic certificate? Is that something that's different than Pride, right? Is Pride something that
No,
was
Pride.
looking at?
No, Pride is work ethic
Same
certificate.
thing?
Yeah, we did not obtain the grant, unfortunately. We thought we were going to, but we did not obtain the grant from VWD. Conveniently, the grant was spread out over 42 counties, I believe, and unfortunately, we were not one of them. So I think the closest school corporation to us was Scott County, I believe. So with that being said, again, it's another item we're going to be discussing on the 12th is, okay, we did not obtain the grant to get the work ethic certificate. But how can we potentially do that without the grant also? So
What's that grant,
I think
what's that money look like?
what did, it was up to, yeah, it was between 25 and 30,000. That's what it was up to, you know. But it paid for everything from professional development to helping pay for flyers, to helping pay for sashes and whatever that may be associated with that. So, and also a piece of that was externship for, I think it was up to 10 teachers over the summer, 2-week externship. So again, not obtaining the grant doesn't mean we can't accomplish our same goals. Obviously, we're going to do it differently. So, but that's going to be another thing on the agenda. So.
And we have some extra CTE money. We received an additional CTE grant that was about $25,000. We've not spent much of that at all. Some of that could go towards additional equipment for this Connexus program. There's a piece of robotics equipment that I think is about $14,000 or $15,000 by itself that is not necessarily vital for the Connexus program, but it's something that we certainly would love to see our students being able to use, and it's something that I think the person that's on the agenda tonight, so that we're recommending for hire, Seth Caudle, has some of that training, that PLTW training. So that's a portion of that. Some marketing for the program would also be a portion of that. And you know, Dr. Mellon and I have talked, and I've said, you know, the old adage that wise men invent and geniuses steal. He has put together, with the help of all of the Greater Clark administrators, that Pride certification and that Pride certificate. You know, it's synonymous with more than 150 businesses in our area, in this region. In essence, we've talked to Steve Griffin and Michael Denny and Andy Mellon. They're fine with us being able to take a look at that Pride initiative and that Pride certification and have it become West Clark Pride as well. I don't think there's a copyright infringement. If there is, we'll make sure that they're, and Andy has said he's fine with that. Because, in my opinion, coming up with a different acronym doesn't make a whole lot of sense when there's 150 businesses that know what Pride stands for, and they know what that acronym is, and they know that it's synonymous with not a rubber stamp certificate that kids get. It's something they truly have to earn, and we would love to be on board with that, with or without the work ethic grant from the governor's office. And Tom's taking charge of that and leading that charge with our guidance counselors as well. Any other questions for Mr. Burkhart? Okay, Tom, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that leads us to the consent agenda. You all have had the consent for quite a while. There's been some additions made. We've made some revisions here to the packet this evening. I do want to, if I may, I do want to draw a couple of things out. We're very, very pleased. About 2 months ago, the board gave us the authority to go ahead and post for some AP positions at Henryville Elementary School and at Silver Creek Elementary School. Before the holiday break, we hired Abby Campbell as the Silver Creek Elementary School assistant principal. Very, very pleased with that hire, pleased with what she's going to be able to offer that building. Along the same time as that was happening, right before the board meeting, literally, we received a call from Mrs. Nunn, Christy Nunn, who's currently, at least for one more day, Silver Creek Middle School assistant principal. Mrs. Nunn, on the heels of receiving the Region 10, I believe, IASP Assistant Principal of the Year Award, called Dr. Riggs and said, I'd like to throw my hat in the ring. I did not want to do that. Right after receiving that award, I didn't want the middle school to feel like I was abandoning them. I think it was tearful on the 16th, the last day. I think that's when she announced that to the staff on December 16th. I think there's been joy and there's been tears probably since then, but we are very, very excited, very happy for Mrs. Nunn, and very pleased that she is going to be going to Henryville Elementary School as the assistant principal there. That left a vacancy over Christmas break for Mr. Eckert and his team to try and find a replacement for Mrs. Nunn. So we posted that, and there's been interviews held. Committee was established, and I know Mr. Eckert is very, very pleased, as I am, because I've seen the work that this, I can call him a young man, I think he's a couple years younger than me, that Todd Balmer is going to bring to the table at Silver Creek Middle School. Todd has carried a lot of water for us of late. He handles our McKinney-Bento grant, which is the homeless child grant for us. He does a lot of investigations, and I've seen a lot of the work that he's done on the data side of things and working with students. So very pleased and congratulate Mr. Balmer. He's on the agenda for approval tonight. I I'm pleased with what our administrative team looks like, what it's becoming, what it's growing into, and I certainly like to thank the board for their support in that. That's all I have for the consent.
Will you be posting his vacancy?
We will, yes. Now, that's something that Mr. Eckert and I have talked about, what that looks like. Just as a recap, I'm glad Mr. Kaufman brought that up. Several years ago, I guess 3 years ago, we had 2 guidance counselors at Silver Creek Middle School. Currently, we have 1, Mrs. Gerlach. We did not replace when we had someone leave us. Nicole Warren left us to take a different job, left in good standing. We did not replace that with a guidance counselor position. We replaced that with a homeschool liaison position, which was what Mr. Balmer has been doing since. When Mrs. Nunn left to go to Henryville Elementary School, that created an AP opening. So therefore, if status quo goes forward, then you would look at the possibility of posting for a homeschool liaison, which historically those are classified positions. Not always. Mr. Balmer wasn't a classified employee, he was certified, but we do have several in the district that are classified. Actually, all of the rest of those are classified positions. So that's status quo posting. If not, then Mr. Eckert and his team will recommend looking at a guidance counselor position, probably one of those 2.
I mean, is that, do you need approval to post that, or are you just gonna wait till that decision's made?
Well, we'll talk, and then I'll probably send the board just something. I don't necessarily need the board's approval. I need if you don't want to vote for it and support it, then you tell me that, you know, in a minute. We will, absolutely, yeah. Now, I think this is a testament to Todd's work ethic and Mr. Eckert's work ethic at the middle school. Mr. Eckert has said we can go a little slower. He's not looking for somebody to replace Mr. Balmer's position next week or even in the month of January. I think we don't want to go past spring break, but I think Mr. Eckert wants to go slowly and talk to Mrs. Gerlach and talk to his team and see what they truly need. That's all I have. Motion.
Motion to approve consent. Motion to Mr. Kaufman, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Guernsey, second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same. 5-0. Thank you. Go on and continue.
Okay, thank you. We're now down to Roman numeral 11, discussion and action items, and I've got, you can see, if you look around the room, you see quite a few things. We have done, in my mind, and in my opinion, we've done a very good job on our transportation, defining the school boundaries. You're going to see on some of these posters, I've got copies back here for the board. You've got 8x10 copies in your packet. You've been sent that electronically. As it currently stands, by township with school boundary lines drawn on those township lines, and then the one that's on the easel has all of our school boundary lines color-coded. We also have an Excel spreadsheet. That Excel spreadsheet has every street and road in this district listed alphabetically. If you want to find it, you find it, and it tells you what campus, meaning is it Henryville, Borden, or Silver Creek. It tells you what bus number. It tells you the bus driver's name and phone number. That's been on our website. That's updated if it changes at all. That's updated very, very quickly and swiftly. But this is more visual. You know, the map that's on the website, to be quite honest with you, we haven't updated that in a long, long time. We really rely on that Excel spreadsheet, and we rely on phone calls. People call the respective offices, or they call central office, and we can tell them, is this Henryville's district, or is this a Borden district address, or is this a Silver Creek district address? But before you, what you have are visual displays so that everyone can see, and I can turn those around. I can entertain questions about, and if you want, I can even call those up on the overhead, but I'll entertain questions from the board on what the boundary lines currently are. There's a few head scratchers, I'll be honest. There's a few things that I inherited when I was the transportation director that I scratched my head and thought, well, I'm not exactly sure, but it's board policy, or it's board approved, and those are the things that I think are open for discussion at any point in time. So this is essentially this is the Monroe Township, and if anyone would want to take a look at these, we're going to have copies at every school on display. But Monroe Township, that's one of those that there's not a whole lot of discussion about Monroe Township. All of Monroe Township is Henryville. That's never been in dispute. That's never been in question. Don't know if it will in the future or not, but that's, again, that's historic. You also have Wood Township, which has always been Borden. Okay, all of Wood Township has always been Borden. As far as I know, it's never. Looking at this with a Reader's Digest focus, those are not ever in question or peril. You go into the other ones, and you start getting a little bit more intricate in detail. So you've got Union Township and Carr Township. Union Township right now is Henryville, and you can see that there's some pockets. We've got in Union Township, we have Glendale Acres, and we've got Harvest Ridge subdivision. Glendale Acres is a Borden subdivision, a Silver Creek subdivision, and Henryville. Harvest Ridge is a Henryville and a Silver Creek subdivision. You can see, again, this is, if the board directs me, we've got this electronically, we put this on the website, all of these maps that have been created. So, again, draw your own conclusions there on but this is historic. We enforce this on the transportation side. I can speak for myself, and I think Tom can probably add to this, that it comes up every year. A lot of times, people will call and say, "Well, this used to be my grandmother lived in this house, and she went to, or my son, or my older son, and now my younger son can't." There's an endless amount of conversation that happens along those lines, and we go off of what has been board approved, and what you see before you has been board approved. This is Carr Township. Okay, Carr Township, again, the largest majority of Carr Township has been Borden. You can see that with the red outline. But as you see, some of that pocket with the yellow H, that's obviously Henryville, but that's outside of Carr Township. That's not technically in Carr Township. But what is you see a pocket, when I mentioned Glendale Acres, there's Glendale Acres that's inside, and then you see Silver Creek. Now the Silver Creek area down on the, what would be the lower right-hand corner, those contain Covered Bridge, Autumn Ridge, Yorktown, and Forest Hills. Those, and the area immediately around those, and it also includes Perry Crossing, the Perry Crossing corridor. That is Silver Creek. Most of that is, if you can see that, that's in Carr Township. But that is Silver Creek. Okay? That's the visual for that. Any questions for me so far? Stop me if you do.
So on Carr Township, that is Sellersburg though, right? As far as
It's been annexed.
annexation.
Part of it.
And part of it
Okay.
is. It's all West Clark, but part of it's been annexed as the town of Sellersburg.
What part has not?
Sorry?
What part has not?
The only part that has is really like Covered Bridge area. Most of Carr Township is not in
It's
it.
a township.
Half of
Township tax.
Autumn Ridge is in Sellersburg, half
Yeah,
of Autumn Ridge hidden.
That's right.
It's the street that they,
So some
everything
people have a
east
board
on the
address
street
in there?
they annexed, and everything west on
No.
the street going into
What you could
Autumn
have in that
Ridge
scenario is you
is still counted.
If you lived on one side of, like you mentioned, like Joe mentioned, inside of Autumn Ridge, if you lived on one side of one of those streets in Autumn Ridge, you pay a Carr Township tax. If you live on the other side of that street, you pay a Sellersburg town tax. There's a difference there.
Most of it goes in Tiffin Township.
Buses will go in.
Just, yeah, good question. On any of those that are choice, where you see the Covered Bridge, or you see Autumn Ridge, Forest Hills, Yorktown, those are choice. So if there's a student that wants to go to Borden because Carr Township is historically Borden, we do have a Borden bus that goes there and will pick up those students. We also have Silver Creek buses that go in and pick up students. And then Silver Creek Township, again, you're going to see on the what would be the northern portion of this map. It's essentially what you saw on the lower right of the Carr Township map. It's just different townships, but Silver Creek Township, and you can see how we border. We've got New Albany, Floyd County, and Charlestown, Greater Clark, where we go over towards Charlestown on 403. But this, in essence, is our township maps. These township maps, township lines have not changed. The boundary lines, have not changed. I think the last time there was a revision or an addition was, I believe, in '06, '07. There was a subdivision that was discussed and brought in that was Harvest Ridge. Since then, there's not been any discussion. Questions for me? Okay. These are going to be on display. We're going to send that out with board's permission. I'll send that out on the website. Essentially, they are these. You can blow those up. I'll leave these here. If anybody wants to pass them around, Chris, wants to take a look at it. They're pretty sturdy. This one is just the entire West Clark community. It's all the townships for us. It's got some of the fringe townships. We kind of cut that off so you can see Greater Clark, Scott County 2, East Washington, New Albany, Floyd County on our borders. But then you can see, as an overall makeup, this is where our townships lie. So this is just a condensation. This is just a condensed version of what we've got there. Okay. I'm going to now give the floor over to, and I don't know who's loaded up and ready. Jim, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
I had to take a load off my feet, sorry.
I want to introduce to the board Jim Hallett. Jim Hallett, former superintendent at Franklin Community, also former superintendent at New Palestine. He now has his own consulting firm with Compass Keynote and Consulting. That's I think I don't know how many on staff. You and
Just me.
just you.
And here I am. I was at Cloverdale this morning, Martinsville this afternoon, and here with you tonight.
Jim comes to us having, and I'm not going to give away the thunder, but more than 150 school corporations working through strategic planning. How many $1 million worth of building projects have you been a part of with your story?
Close to 500 million. I'm the one who built the $130 million high school at Franklin, if you've been up there. That was my project. It took 6 years to build that school, but it was an awesome project. I built it for my grandchildren. I have grandkids there now, so I just tell people, hey, I built that for my kids.
Well, what we really want to have is a discussion, and this is not the end-all be-all. Jim has not been hired. He's not been paid a commission to be here tonight, but what he has been asked by me is to talk to the board about the process. Talk to the community about the process of strategic planning. What are our overall outcomes that we would like to see? How long does this typically take to bring from start to finish? What hurdles do we have in this district? I think we all know we've got $62.9 million as a passed resolution for a project. We all also know that project is not it's not went anywhere at this point. We've got a feasibility study. We have had community input sessions. We have all of those needs addressed. We have survey results. We have all of those things and all those pieces, which some of that may be things that you would normally recommend through the strategic planning process. However, what we haven't done as a district, we have not had the conversation pointedly in saying, if this happens, then we are committed to doing this. And that may be a 5-year statement, that might be a 10-year statement, it might be a 3-month statement. That if this happens, this is what we are going to do because this is what we want this district to look like in the future. 3-month future, 5-year future, 10, 15-year future. We have to, in my mind, we have to put those things down on paper. We have to gain consensus from our communities, and we have to be willing to take this process through because there's a lot. There's a lot of opinion. There's a lot of things. And this board, I work for this board. This board listens, I think, to every one of you out in the audience. They listen to all of their constituents. But I've heard this board say, I've heard members of this board say, that does not mean that they do everything that every single constituent person wants because they can't. They have to look at the greater good. They have to look at the tough decisions, and that's why they've been elected as board officials. So, Mr. Halleck, I'm not going to steal any more of your thunder. Do you need me to load that up?
No, I'm gonna shorten this a little bit.
Okay.
You have a long night.
Okay.
And I'm not really here to sell anything or to sell myself. I came down here that if I have the opportunity to work, it's fine. I just like to say for the record, I do this because it's fun. My wife says, why did you go to 3 school districts today? I said, because I'm living the dream. We're both retired. I know consulting doesn't have a really good connotation to some people. I really view myself as a guide on the side and a coach. And I do a lot of guiding and I do a lot of coaching of school districts. 43 years of school administration and education. I was a science teacher, became a principal. I've never worked more than 20 miles of where I grew up. I never knew it snowed in southern Indiana, if you want to know the truth. I was surprised you guys got snowed out here. I just thought it snowed north of US 40. But I was a teacher, principal, coach, athletic director at Center Grove Schools. In fact, I just finished an interim principalship. In my retired life, I've been in 138 school districts, 47 counties. I'm part-time at Butler, adjunct at UIndy, and I do Neola. I'm your Neola rep. I meet with John on your board policies and guidelines and help make sure you're legal with all the federal and state standards. I have 52 clients in southern Indiana from Hendricks County straight south and all along the river. So I get down here a lot, and I was trapped in that 20-mile box of where I grew up. I grew up at Center Grove, went to work there, like I say, taught, coached, and was principal. And then I decided to be a superintendent and got the job at Franklin. And that's 10 miles from where I grew up. So I did that for 10 years, and we pretty much rebuilt that whole school district. When I got there, that was a mission and a vision of the board, that lots of the facilities had not been touched in a number of decades, literally touched. They needed new roofs, they needed windows, they needed new walks, parking lots, they needed a transportation center. So I had the opportunity to be the superintendent that was not the instructional leader that I thought I was going to be. I was the construction leader and led construction. And so we did millions and millions of dollars, and they're taken care of for a long, long time. But I'll tell you that that's where I learned process, and that process is as important as outcome, and working with people in the community, talking with people and guiding them. I'm not here to bring solutions or answers, but I've been to a lot of places, and I've seen a lot of things in the last 26 months since I retired. And then I left Franklin and went to Southern Hancock, which is New Palestine, Dragons. State football champs last year, had a state wrestling champ last year, right? You guys keep track. I have a ring on every finger when I was a superintendent. I loved it. You know, superintendents want those state championships. I had 3 baseball, 3 softball state champs, 4A. We did well. It was because of the superintendent, right? You know, it's not because of those kids. I'm kidding, but I have to tell you that I had the time of my life being superintendent, and I cried when I left. I mean, they walked me out of the central office. One of my secretaries on each arm wanting to know if they should drive me home because I loved my job. And but I'm closer to 70 than I am 60, so you figure the years and when I started in the late 60s, early 70s, so I'm a 60s, 50s kid, time passed me by. And when my wife and I retired, she's a retired teacher, and we have 8 grandchildren, and they all live within 10 miles of our house. Again, it's kind of like I've been in that box, and now I've gotten out of it, and that's why I'm living the dream, because I was at Griffith, Indiana yesterday, so I was up in the region yesterday, and I'm down here in West Clark tonight. And I like driving around, and I like working in leading groups. My most recent project was Franklin County. I helped Franklin County lead their facility process. They need to do some reorganization and grade level realignment, and I believe their board this month is going to take action and vote publicly now on the community-based, committee-driven consensus of recommendations to the board of options. And when I lead a process, we don't have an option and we don't have a solution. We bring options and solutions, because it rests with you. And I've seen boards vote on exactly what the community majority really wanted, but other times I've seen boards vote on what you knew you could afford. And you know, I've always led and driven by the adage that if you can afford a Cadillac, you drive one. If you can afford a Ford, that's what you drive. I have a Ford. I'd like to have that new Cadillac mid-size, what do you call those, crossovers, but you know what? I don't. And so you too have to live within the means in which you know information, in fact, that the public doesn't know about budget and finance and bonding and funding and all of those things. So what I would bring to the district is simply the strategic planning process. And that's something I believe I've probably been able to have championed over the years, and why I continue to get phone calls in my retirement. I know that when you think of retirement too, you think of old. I think you're only as old as you feel, and I'm not ready to quit working yet. So I'm here tonight because I can offer some service to you, I believe, in your strategic planning and bring your community together. And one of the first steps would be that we would need to have a work session and a retreat with you, with me, so that I could train you and teach you about what I believe are the steps you need to take as a board, and how to set up a committee, what the committee ought to look like. You weren't born by osmosis to know how to do that. So it sometimes takes that guide in the side and as a board coach to kind of help you lead the way, as to then you turn it over to the superintendent and then we run that process to the committee. But I have to know what your vision is, what your mission is, what are you really looking at, what are you thinking, what do you like, what don't you like, and that comes through that training and exchange of ideas, and so that's a process in itself, is a collaboration and communication. So I'll answer questions you may have.
On some of the projects that you helped with in the last 5 years since the state has started to step on school board's toes, how many successful campaigns have you?
I don't
done
lead
as far
campaigns.
as- How many projects?
It's not even projects. That's not what I do. I'm not here to help you win a project. I'm here to help you develop and decide what that project or projects ought to look like. Then you go that next step. You have to have a plan first, and without a plan of action and having a timeline and setting goals and communicating with your community, you don't have anything yet. So to answer your question, 0. But when I was a superintendent, never had one project not approved by the Board of Local Government Finance. Almost all $500 million was approved by the local Board of Government Finance. Not one signature or petition to stop or object a project, because we processed it. That Franklin Community High School took 6 years to process. It didn't just all of a sudden on a whim somebody say, hey, well, let's just build a new high school and here's what we're going to do. The big argument in that community was really where to build a high school. And that's what we had to process. East of 31 or west of 31. Same 31 you live on out here. It's just farther north on which side of the street we're going to build it on. And that was our debate. And for me as superintendent, I didn't care. We'd have built it on the moon and painted space shuttles yellow and transported the kids there if that's really what they wanted to do. But it's the board's final decision, the board majority. So I can tell you that every project I had something to do with as a professional superintendent, from design and development and educational specifications to completion of the project, 0 failed. All got done and all built. Closed an elementary, built an elementary, built a middle school, renovated a middle school, renovated 2 elementaries, built a transportation center, built a new high school. That's a lot in 20 years as a superintendent. I'm not saying that's what I wanted to do when I was superintendent, but that's what the job entailed, and that's what I got hired to do in those 2 communities where I was offered the job to be their leader. And as a consultant, I'm a strategic planner. I'm a coach is all I am, and a guide on the side to help you figure out what it is you need and you want to do. And then once you figure out what it is you need to do, then you get other professionals who will take you that next step further and see that you get the project. And that would rely on your superintendent and others that you would bring in. So I'm glad you asked that question, because that's not what I'm here for. I do a lot of board orientation, a lot of board training, a lot of strategic planning workshops, mission, vision, goals, core values, and developing a direction for districts. That's what I guide you to do.
I don't know if you may have noticed, but our school corporation, our school board we do have our belief and value statements, mission statement, vision statement, and goals all outlined with action steps. So that's kind of a beginning framework.
Mm-hmm.
How would you take us further than what's already established?
Well, what I want to know is, I'm getting the feeling that it really is that you're looking at facilities. Is that correct?
Well, it's a part of it.
That's a part of
the
it.
communication
That's why we
plan
need to get
strategy.
together and to meet and see what the whole scope is of what you want community involvement, because that's where I come in and I work well with your community. I'm that outside guy who can come in here and kind of be a mediator and lead the process, facilitate the conversation. We have fun. I think if you talk to anybody at Franklin County, they'll tell you We took a big group of patrons and administrators and school employees and interested citizens and the superintendent, and we had an all-day retreat as part of the process. And we met on Friday night for dinner, set the lay of the land, what we were going to do, and we worked from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Saturday, and it was a working lunch. We didn't even stop for lunch. We continued to work, and we drove and drove and drove until we were able to have something we could finalize and present and distribute to the board, and they had fun doing it. But not everybody agreed with everybody else's ideas, but in the end, I bring you to consensus. It's not, do you like it, can you live with it? And that's what I try to bring patrons and community people and administrators and board members to do. Come to consensus on whatever the issues are that you want me to help you find a resolution for.
Have you ever dealt with a situation where you couldn't come to consensus?
No, I haven't actually. It's a really good question, but I appreciate that. And I've served on many boards. Actually, I would like for you, before you even decide what you want to do with me, is go to my website at Compass Keynote, and I have listed in there all the boards I've served on: community development boards, foundation boards, park boards, Boy Scout board, 4-H board. I mean, I've done a lot in 43 years of my life, but again, when you work at home and you live at home and you're surrounded by people who love you, care about you, and are your friends, that might be an unfair question for you to ask, because my whole career, I chose wisely. Not everybody gets to say that, and that's why I bawled my eyes out when I left, because I chose wisely and I loved what I did and I wasn't ready to give it up. So now I get to share that education and experience with others, is what I see. At Cloverdale this morning, in Martinsville this afternoon, and here in Griffith yesterday. Tomorrow I'm going to be in Crawford County all day. So I'll drive home and sleep and get in my car and go help Jerry DeRossett and his board and his community. And so that's really what I get to do. I don't know if that answers your question, but I think I can help you if you want my help and you think that I can contribute something to your district and future direction you want to go.
How long is the process normally?
Well, again, it depends on that scope. At Franklin County, it was about 4 months. Think of when I went to Duneland up in the region area. That was actually, we worked on 2.5 years. It's as long as what it takes for the plan. What we were working on is long-range strategic plan, and they didn't have true core values. They wanted to reestablish their vision. They wanted to look at their mission. They wanted to retool, and it's a premier district. Duneland is, in that area, the place people really are fighting to go, and so they wanted to reinvent and make sure they could stay popular and recruit children from other districts, their brand. I help districts improve their brand. That's probably one of the things I've assisted the most with, is how do you promote and sell who you are? Why should children come here? Why did the children who come here, why should they stay here? And if children are leaving, why are they leaving? And what do we need to do to get them back? Because, see, public education is no longer just us as the monopoly. You're competing with homeschool, you're competing with online school. There's Indiana Online Academy. A parent can send their child pre-K through the 12th grade, never cross the threshold of a school, and get a graduation diploma from the Indiana Academy, paid for by tax dollars of the public school. There's the Montessori schools, there's your neighboring school districts are your competitor. Your Catholic schools, parochial schools. I mean, the list goes on, and we talk about all that in proper settings, and it's all about who you are and who do you want to be. And that's what I help boards and superintendents and administrators and communities do, is who do you really want to be, and what do you want people to say about you? Like Jeff Bezos from Amazon says, what is it that people say about Wes Clark when you're not around? What did they say? And what do they say about one of your high schools or all your high schools when you're not around? What is that brand? Are you the Coca-Cola? Or are you the RC? Are you the Cadillac or are you the Ford? There's probably nothing wrong with a Coke versus RC or Cadillac or Ford, but one attracts more and brings more money. And every child you lose costs you money.
So in the strategic plan, it typically, you stretch it out, you establish it for about a 5-year period, correct?
3 to 5 years are the best way for a board to establish a strategic plan to have direction that everybody's going. That's why my company's name Compass is. I bring in a compass for everybody, we read what it says, and everybody's going a different way. How do we get everybody aligned to north, if that's the direction you want everybody to align to go? So yes, the answer is 3 to 5 years is the best.
But you're still, within that 3 to 5 year plan, you're looking beyond that into the future with regards to 10, 15, and 20 years out, correct?
Absolutely. You never look at that. You have to look further than the end of your nose. Schools have to start thinking that way. Businesses have been doing it that way for a long, long time. But we in public education have not, and we've failed. And I've learned over the years, and I have a marketing degree. Not that that means a whole lot to any of you in here, but I do have a degree in marketing, and I felt like my whole life I have sold and marketed public education to people about what the good things are that we do, because we're not very good self-promoters of what we do.
Are you seeing, more just as a quick question for the strategic planning process, are you seeing school corporations incorporating strategies for soliciting private dollars where the public dollars are falling short? Are you seeing more of that?
There are some, actually, yes. I'm not seeing more of it, but I am seeing some of it.
Development
Yes.
strategies?
There are some that are doing that, and actually more up in the region area than down in the southern part of the state. But that doesn't mean you can't and shouldn't be talking about it, but it can come to the table. And it's something that if someone's interested in, should come to the table. And if it becomes to filter it out through the process as being one of the 3 to 5 major hot buttons and topics that this district wants to hit, then we write a goal action plan. And a goal action plan is this. It has strategies of how you're going to accomplish the goal. It has who are the people who are going to do it. It has if these people are going to do it, what timeline are they going to do it by? How are you going to measure whether you accomplished it or not? All goals must be measurable. So when I'm finished, the goal will be measurable. You'll know whether or not you're getting there or not. It helps your superintendent. Oh man, and this is how I did it with my district. It made my evaluation so much easier for my board because we were always working on the same 3 to 5 goals, and when one would fall off, the next year we'd strategize in a retreat what that next new goal might be, what's the new area of focus, what's the next hot button that the community has they'd like to have as a topic to talk about. And it's ongoing, and once you get in the groove of doing that, all your jobs are really, really easy.
Well, because most importantly, that allows you to assess yourself and report back to the community on your
You're doing it all the time.
progress.
My district has it, and I think you could go to Southern Hancock if they haven't abandoned it since I left 2.5 years ago. It still may be there as part of their culture. I hope it is, because you feel like when you left, you hope you left something in the culture that's ingrained. But all our updates were always there. Every time we did something toward our goal action plan, after every cabinet meeting, boom, it was posted on the website. Everybody knew exactly what we were doing when we were doing it, who did it, and did we meet our timeline. And if we didn't meet the timeline, we had an explanation of why we didn't meet the timeline. And that's what I help districts do. So this process could take 2 months, it could take 3 months, it could take 4 months. I don't want to be here 2 to 5 years because I might be dead. So let's not count on that. Like I say, I'm closer to 70 than I am 60 anymore. But I would like to see if we did something here that we got going on it and we did it. Winter's my best time because right now I'm not teaching at Butler until summer semester, and UIndy's not till summer semester. And I just finished an interim principalship at Sutter Grove. I did an elementary school of 1,000 kids last semester. I felt like I was a bird in a cage. I actually feel like, man, it's nice to be here tonight with you people because I'm not like trapped in that building. Though I loved what I was doing and I love elementary. And then I share that with you too. You know why? It's because I'm current. I might be getting older, but I have stayed current. I've sharpened the saw, and I've been out there and about deliberately because I really love what I do. So.
Could you realistically help us do this within 60 days? Or would that be...
I would want to meet with you and let's talk about process. I want to sit down actually with the board and let me teach you my process, because we can do that in board training with an outside consultant. And then that's when you, the board, and I, and the superintendent would establish that time frame. And I would see no reason we couldn't do it in 60 days, but I would hate to say to our public that we could do something without my knowing the scope and then have to turn and say we couldn't. I don't like making promises that I can't keep. This I will promise is that if we got together and we started a process, you would like the outcome in the end. I think you would be pretty pleased. And again, it's something I enjoy doing. If you enjoy it, you do it well. If you don't enjoy doing it, then you know it just doesn't get done. Anything else?
So, is this discussion only, or is this decision time, or
You want, you can,
I mean, with the intent?
the intent was, let's talk about what would you like to do? Do you want to have me bring a few more
Thank you, Jim.
consultants to you? Jim, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And I did jump down.
I'll only
so the
point out
audience
to you
can
that a
follow.
retired guy's calendar looks like this. So this is January. just so you know. And so if something were to be worked out, we need to be talking calendar real fast because February holes are starting to go. So,
What do you have on the 25th of January?
are you serious?
Yes. Just a question.
I'm going to be in Batesville with Paul Ketchum all day until about noon. Until about noon. And then I was going to go see Debbie Howell at Franklin County to see how her board vote went on our process. Then I'm free. So I'd be coming from Batesville if it would be evening or afternoon. It's,
Okay.
It's about an hour and a half drive for you.
that'd be me with that superintendent. I don't know. I've never driven Batesville to here. From my house, it's just almost 2-hour drive because I live rural Morgantown.
I go up there once in a while, I travel through usually.
And just so we're all, what I heard Jim say, and so we're all on the same page, the first thing would be board coaching, board training. That's done. You mentioned, I think, on the phone, a couple of hours typically is that first initial.
Not more than 2 hours. 2 hours is healthy.
A couple of hours, that's done in an executive session with myself, the board, and our central office team. So the community knows, the public knows, and then at that point, we'll know then if 60 days, 90 days, 120 days, whatever that, and that's all open for, I guess, for movement, but we'll know a little bit more at that point in time as to.
And there are lots of ways to do this process, and some are completely open to all public, some are where you set up committees and you establish a committee and there's an application process. That's what Franklin County did. They ran an ad in the paper and people who were interested in serving on the strategic planning committee from the community, they applied, and the application made people actually think about why it is they want to be on there rather than do I have an axe or a hatchet to drive or something that has a personal agenda, because we need people who come with open minds. Even though we all have agendas of our own, we need to have an open mind because nothing gets done without open minds. Closed minds have agendas. Open minds get things done. So those are the things we need to talk about. That's what the meeting with the board would be, is how do we want to set it up? How do you see this going? And I'll share lots of ideas and teach you ways that districts that I work with have done it. There's no perfect right or wrong way, but all ways work. Okay?
We need to make a motion.
Yeah.
With a
I'm
motion.
asking questions that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll entertain a motion to have Mr. Allen come in on the 25th, we can.
So, I'll just make sure, I mean, from the standpoint of the meeting, if we do that from like 6 to 8 or whatever, or earlier, because you got general business stuff you still need to do.
No, I'll, barring any hire that would have to happen, you know, we talked about barring any, it'll be a small, if not any consent. We won't have anything else.
You'll have the Board of Finance you have to do.
We will, that's right.
We have to
We
do
postponed
that.
that because we didn't have all of the end of year.
Yes.
That's the canceled checks, that's the reconciliations. That'll take 10 minutes, it may be
Yeah, at the most.
I mean, I said, no, maybe you had the open meeting first, and then in case this meeting goes beyond 2 hours, you might want to have the general meeting at 6, let's say, and start at 6:30 or whatever, and you go as long as you need to go. That way you're not pushing to the topic.
We can have the executive afterwards, the training session. That's a good idea. So if we start at 6 for our special work session, then we'll advertise an executive at 6:30. That'll give us a half an hour to have that meeting and take care of regular, business that we need to take care of, and then we'll go into the training and executive at 6:30. Does that sound okay?
So we need a motion to
Have Jim come down.
have Jim come back on the 25th.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion, do I have a second? We have a motion, we have a second, all in favor say aye. Aye. The opposed, the same. 5-0.
Jim,
Well,
thank you. We have a 2-hour delay tomorrow, but
Thank
you
you.
don't.
And you know what, when I was watching the news this morning, drinking my coffee, I was so thankful. I wasn't worried about delay of school or cancellations. 20 years of that. Yes, thank you. My pleasure. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, John.
We also have, so I know Jim is heading back to the Franklin Center Grove area. Safe travels.
Thank you.
You're not going anywhere else tonight, are you?
No, I just have to be at Crawford County in the morning, so yeah, thanks. See you later. Yes, good night.
We also have a couple of gentlemen in the audience that also have to return to Indianapolis a little bit later on. So I'm jumping down and looking at something that I know we've talked about. It came up at one of our last board meetings, was the process and the likelihood of maybe looking at some architectural renderings. Some things that we all know. We've had our facility and feasibility study. We've had those immediate and 5-year and 10-year needs. We've had somewhat of the 2-dimensional drawings done. Those are not written in stone or etched in stone. Those are just based on, hey, this is what we think are your needs, and how we tallied up to that 62.9 for the current project and the resolution. What we truly need, I think, is maybe to take a look at architectural renderings, virtual drawings of what that might look like. So I've got with Fanning Howie, architect, lead principal, I think, Mike Shipp, and we also have William Payne. Bill Payne is here as well. They've come down. I've worked with them before. Just to talk briefly, they don't have a rendering for tonight, do you guys? No. Okay, so no one in the audience is expecting that. They didn't bring in Legos to show us what this is going to look like either. But what they are going to do is, I think, talk about the process. They've seen our study. They've seen some of the data that we have. They're going to talk about what does this look like in the next phase, and how do you want to move forward as a board.
You may have to go around to the front.
If not, I'll turn it on. There you go. So Mr. Payne, Mr. Shipp.
Mr. Shank, thank you very much for inviting us to follow Jim Hallett. That was quite the presentation. I'm not sure that will be quite as entertaining as that, but I think we have some really good information to share with you this evening. Thank you for the opportunity to come and address the board. Actually, it's been a year to this week that we've last addressed the board, so thank you for the opportunity to come back. I'm the CEO of Fanning Howie Associates. We're a 100-person firm, 4 offices throughout the Midwest. And I'll talk a little bit more about our firm, but this is really not a sales pitch. It's more about what we call successful project communications. Mr. Shank asked us to come down and talk to that and talk about some of the techniques that we have seen and have used in past success stories. And so that's what we're going to do tonight, is talk to you a little bit about that. And in that process, I'll sort of explain where we fit in terms of context to what Mr. Halleck was just explaining, the strategic planning that he does, where a subsequent project fits in, where this fits into the overall picture. So, just a little bit about Fanning Howie. We're in our 56th year of serving our Indiana and Midwest clients. In fact, we have a national practice. We work all the way from Florida to the Bering Strait, so we've done work throughout the country. We believe that our clients, even in central Indiana, find that valuable because wherever 21st century learning is occurring, we bring that value to our clients. We're a full-service architectural engineering and planning firm, and in this case, I think what we're really talking about is planning. Trying to hit the mark of where you're at. Now, we've been watching since last year. We've been watching you sort of vicariously from a distance, trying to stay in contact and see as your process has been going along. Some of the things that we may talk about may seem sort of elementary to you. Oh, we've already done that, Bill. Some may be enlightening and some may be somewhere in between. So look at this as a discussion about this is some of the things that we've done in the past to help deliver success and get our projects, our clients' projects moving forward successfully. Our practice is focused entirely on the design of learning environments. We don't design hospitals, we don't design commercial strip centers. We do schools, university work. So we're highly focused on learning environments, and I think that's really helpful when you're trying to engage your community and explain what's important to you, to your students, to your vision, to your strategic plan. We can translate that effectively into architectural visions. And again, Mr. Shanks sort of foreshadowed one of the reasons that we're here. And finally, because we do that, we believe that we're skilled in doing that, translating that basic data into visions that people can understand, get behind, build consensus, and ultimately support you at the ballot box. Just a little bit about ourselves. By the way, Mike and I are both architects. We're both principals in the firm. Mike's actually been there a year longer than me. I joined the firm in '89. Mike's been there since '88. So we're still together. We've been working together all that time and pretty effectively. Our roles during projects, I'm a project executive, so my typical role would be overall leadership, communication, to boards, to communities, and so forth. Mike is a project manager, project designer. He's expert in the design of schools, both elementary, middle, and high school. And in fact, the success story we're sharing with you this evening, just to show you some of the things we've done, is one of Mike's shining examples. I want to laugh because before we left, we were just talking to one of our graduate architects and telling him, Sean, we want to dispel the notion that architects are not good spellers and not good with grammar. So one of the things that we do need to do is verbally communicate well. And so probably the first step is we believe that there is a lot of discussion about scope or proposed scope within that $62.9 million. And we sometimes fail at this as well as others. We're so busy talking about scope, we fail to talk about benefits. Why is it that we're doing it? That's really what helps to start build that engagement process. And we'll talk a little bit about that. We want to translate the feasibility study, just the words, sort of the pure data, into some kind of recognizable plan that folks can understand what that might mean. Now, maybe $62.9 million does not cover everything that you would ultimately like to do. So this may be a plan that has the opportunity to be phased over time, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. We want to build images that engage folks, that tell them what is this going to look like. Again, words on paper don't always explain clearly what the ultimate result is going to be. And so sometimes community members, they think, wow, okay, so we're going to spend all this money and we're still going to have just the building that just as it looks. And so that's where that three-dimensional visualization is important. And then finally, whatever we do, that format needs to be easily incorporated into content that's then used in an effective campaign. So these are not one-time documents, images, or so forth. This is all building towards consensus, building towards support, and building towards a successful referendum campaign. So, I'm the verbal guy. I do design very occasionally when they let me do it. Otherwise, it's Mike that does it. But here's just some examples. So, for instance, when we talk about different aspects of a plan, oftentimes it's easy to say, well, we're going to replace all mechanical systems, and that sounds logical, but to be honest, where's the sizzle in that? What does that mean? That's all the hidden stuff that we don't see. Well, why are we doing that? It's fact. I mean, statistically proven. High-quality, comfortable learning environments raise test scores. Who wants to work in an office with no windows, that's uncomfortable all the time, that you're constantly putting on and off coats or jackets or whatever, and you can't see what you're working on and your technology is not working appropriately? I mean, that's sort of an extreme example, but the point is, we're doing that because we want comfortable and engaging learning environments where students and teachers can work and learn effectively. So we want to use that. I think that engenders more support. Obviously, there's renovation involved, but why are we renovating classrooms? Because in 21st century learning environments, we want to create more collaborative, project-based learning environments. That's what we're trying to do. We're preparing our students for a world that we were not prepared for when we went to school. So obviously, they're going to be living in a different world, working in a different world. And we want to make sure that they have the environments that they're going to anticipate they're going to help them move towards that reality. Improving circulation, and we know we've been through Silver Creek before just as an example, and we know that over time additions happen, things happen, and all of a sudden you find, wow, what was the logic in this? There probably was in the initial building, but now it just seems sort of disjointed, and we need to improve that. The reality is kids now today with one-on-one technology learn anywhere, anytime. They collaborate spontaneously, they can sit down, they can be together and yet be alone as they're working. They have access to technology 24/7. So, yes, we want to improve circulation, but we want to make that effective learning space. We can't afford to have any square foot that is not fully purposed for the learning activity in any building. That's what your community demands. They want to make sure that every dollar is spent wisely, and so every square foot has to support learning, or that's a lost opportunity. And then finally, in the way in which we talk about programs, let's make sure that we're talking about things that are important to our students as they're moving into careers, going on to college. So for instance, Career and Tech Readiness, CTE. All of our clients now, everybody that we're working with, we're all talking about how can we improve that area, how can we make that more effective and bring in the technology that's necessary. It's not just renovating shop areas, it's creating career and tech readiness for students to actually get certifications, go into the workforce in high-paying jobs. So verbally, we can talk about things like that. So we can sort of take what you already have, couple that with your strategic plan, and start to build more of a clear vision of what this will accomplish. So again, we brought an example here. Of course, Mr. Schenck will recognize this from Southridge. This is Southwest Du Bois. This is one of our success stories. And with that, I'll turn the floor over to Mike, who is project manager, project designer, also a famous alumnus of Southridge High School as well.
Remember that, famous.
Depends on who you ask.
Yeah, good point.
He's got a big family in Southwest. Yeah. Well, we started off that project. They already had all their expectations. They knew they needed the right size classrooms. They knew they needed to provide windows in classrooms. They needed to utilize the facility better. They knew that they had an antiquated building that was actually about 35 years it had never been touched. And they wanted to bring it up to the level of adjacent school corporations because they're concerned about, at that time, dollars always follow the scholars now. So they're concerned about losing students. And we worked with a core group of 40 people. It was called the CARE group. So, and they were honestly, can you imagine this room right here all trying to build consensus on all these ideas that they had and the feasibility and the input that they've gathered over the previous year before hiring an architect. So immediately we began to say, there's some challenges here. The first row, just for example, said we wanted a new school building. You know, they thought that the existing facility couldn't possibly be renovated. The second row was, well, we want to renovate it. Third row was, we want to spend more money than what the community would support, which was about 25 million. They wanted to spend about 40 million. The fourth row really had no idea what they wanted to do yet. Sorry, the fifth row, we didn't have that many in our committee, but the first four rows, I assure you, we had that many. And essentially what we began to do is identify and prioritize all that facility, all that feasibility information, and begin to put it in a logical plan to begin to demonstrate, because they couldn't support a $60 million new high school, but they could support quite a bit, and maybe even actually begin to think about not a 5-year solution, but a 10-year solution, and that's how we began to build from. So we began just to show that it was possible, conceivable. Working with that committee, is we began to look at the existing plan, and without laying anything over the, without saying the addition could go here, the additional classroom could go here, we reinvented the spaces. There were a lot of challenges. Security, size of classrooms were a little over 700. National standards were 900 square feet. They had a lot of good bones. They had a great gymnasium. They had a great pool area. They had an auditorium, and part of that row wanted to tear down everything else and rebuild it back in place. But what do you do with all the students when you tear that building down? So we had some challenges there. So we began to strategize on how that could actually work in a plan just by laying bubbles over the existing plan and begin to reorganize. One of the challenges too with 21st century learning is that, well, the decisions we make today might impact the Mr. Crabtree's delivery in the future at his principal, or at the high school, the educational delivery. So we actually plan with the committee about how we can design the academics, not only to support team teaching, to support what I'd call academies. Maybe there's a freshman academy or a senior academy, or our subject, like all the English could be together, all this work. So the design of the academics in concert with the whole renovation was all thought out. So it's not only a 5-year plan, it's a 10, 15, 20-year plan to make sure it can not limit the technology and how you want to deliver that curriculum. So that's how that began to play in. So we accommodated all the concerns about this existing facility in this case in all the orange. The dark orange, the light orange is actually all new construction. We redid the envelope because the outside, you'll see in a moment, had some challenges as well. And the blue was actually the second phase. That's the 2020 plan. So hopefully they'll move forward because the plan's in place. So putting all that down, everybody began to realize, hey, this is actually possible at this location. Now keep in mind, every solution is different, every school corporation is different, but the idea is the information's there. We just got to apply it to your circumstances. And now this is not that burlap orange carpeting was there. That was the main entry you walked into, and it wasn't a very exciting and not a very visual space. But the idea behind it was, Mike, we want to decentralize these lockers. What does that mean? Also, how do we enhance this environment? So we began to think about what that vision might look like. Granted, if you walked into the school, you have an opportunity to go there. It looks pretty much just like this. Granted, we've enhanced that even a little bit more through the design process, but they wanted a nice entry, not too nice. So you always have to walk that fine line too. So this is the new entrance looking back at a secured vestibule, looking back to the main student entrance. So it was just a 2-story, very, very minor 2-story space, but you'll see it on the exterior elevations. But then they begin to visualize, hey, that's much nicer than what we have, and it's actually an enhancement. This is the existing corridors. They had a lot of interior classrooms, not many windows. The windows were there, you couldn't look out. I was very challenged, had a lot of limitations back in the 80s when I went to school there. But the
Still
key,
learn.
I survived. But the key here is that they were concerned with what would the classrooms look like with interior classrooms, what the lockers look like. And then go to the next slide. This is actual rendering of the academic corridors. We discovered we had some extra volume that we could take advantage of and not impact the mechanical systems. We put windows up above the corridors, things that we've done in other parts of the country when we have compact plants, and we put light shelves in the classrooms so the light from the hallway bounces off. All this improves the quality and environment of the educational space. So if you walk down these 4 main corridors where all the student lockers are now, dispersed throughout the building, this is what it looks like. But the key, these renderings were utilized as part of the building the consensus and saying that yes, it's plausible and conceivable that this can actually occur. Then you got to not only look on the inside, but you got to look at the outside. And this is the approach. There are windows there, but they're all hidden by walls and alcoves but the key there was very 70s, very, I would almost say, almost prison-like, because it had the narrow, what I'd call the arrow windows, very narrow. You've seen them.
Oh,
Yeah. But the key there was, they wanted this community wanted something that they could be proud of. They could have the vested interests. So we transformed that by not only putting a surgical addition on the front facade, improving all the thermal performance of that exterior wall that had no insulation. It had vermiculite, so that stuff's lava rock and it begins to settle over time. So I learned that term. I wasn't practicing when they were using vermiculite, believe it. That's a good thing. So this is what it looks like today. So you begin to see, you can actually have a good quality rendering and begin to see that everybody can build enthusiasm about the revitalization of the high school. Then as you move forward too, there were still people who thought we had enough support to spend more. We needed to do more. But that blue area I showed you on the floor plan was, the idea was that at some point in time, you gotta know when to say when, and just to make sure that all the planning that you do today doesn't impact the planning and continuing projects that you have to do down the road. So this is what it looks like today, and hopefully in the year 2020, we begin to tie in 3 separate buildings and make it all look, one holistic approach. So when all these avenues, all these renderings, all these graphic information, it really became a visualization of that care group, of the board as well. And the idea behind it was something that they use and build consensus and move forward.
So I think this is sort of interesting. This is just sort of a grouping of information that's used during a campaign effort. All of the graphics, the information, the content that is there is drawn directly from our visualization, our communication process. And particularly down at the bottom right-hand corner, I think that's interesting. We've done this many times. So what we could have now in that particular instance, because of speed, we used images of our buildings that we had designed to show what they might look like. But in this case, it might be more important to show how a building could be transformed on the exterior or on some of those interior spaces. So again, just to sort of highlight, we want to translate data into an understandable plan, just as Mike has shown. Okay, so we see this: replace mechanical systems, make additions, renovate classrooms. What does that really mean? And can we afford it? And if we can't do everything, can we make sure that we don't preclude the possibility of doing a second phase and doing more in the future? So that was that plan. Focus on benefits rather than scope. I've got these a little bit reversed, so that was my part. Verbalizing what it is that scope is and doing it in such a way so that you focus on the benefits. Why is it that we're doing it? How does it align with our strategic vision? Why is it important for our 21st century learners? Build images that explain and excite. So again, Mike and I, we work with plans all the time. You know, we understand immediately 2 dimensions, but so many people have difficulty understanding that. It's meaningless to them. So even those plans with the colors, the information on there, it's still hard to understand, whereas those 3-dimensional images really sort of bring home, okay, now I see where that addition's going. Now I see why the building is going to look entirely different. And then inform messaging that will engender support. Take that information, everything we develop, and make sure that it's ready to be incorporated immediately into a campaign moving forward. This is what all our clients look like after we're done with them. Now, an astute individual not too long ago said, wait a second, look at the gentleman in the blue. And I said, well, there's always a doubting Thomas in every group, right? So, no, but this is where we want to get to, ultimately, with the plan, is everybody on board. I think you heard that from Jim. Ultimately, we want to build consensus. There's always going to be compromise. You're not going to get everything that you want or think that you need immediately because we're all constrained within budget. All we do is public school work. I've never had an unlimited budget. I have no idea what that is. We always end up within budget. We have no choice because the state governs that and keeps control over that. So we have no choice. We have to work within that. But if we do that wisely, together, build collaboration, build consensus, we can get done what needs to be done and end up at this point. So that's our brief presentation, and Mike and I would be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions for Bill or Mike?
You know, one of our options here on this campus is to renovate our high school with some additions that we know. What would it take you to give us a look at the different entryway, or what I call our courtyard, as far as enclosing something like that for a commons area and stuff?
Well, let's talk about time to begin with. Number one, just like Jim indicated, this is not something, architects don't go off in ivory towers, create something and bring it back down from on high. It's always informed by what your needs and desires are and what to make sure that it aligns and fits within that. So the first thing we would want to do would be to have a more detailed discussion. We've not actually seen the detailed feasibility study. We've just, I think I'm familiar with it as much, I think, from the 1028 resolution and some of the data that was in there. So we'd want to have a better understanding of that. And then from that, we'd have a sense of overall
what you might do with the high school pieces and parts, and that would begin to inform how we would address the exterior of the entrance and what that might look like. To develop a rendering like what Mike showed you on South Ridge would not be that expensive. It would probably be in the somewhere between $1,500 to $2,000, something like that.
That's last month, one of the things that we had asked for was costs of new in front of our present building compared to remodeling with what we had.
So typically what we would do is we would build and I'm sure you probably have this to some degree in your feasibility study findings, we would build a cost model where we would look at all the costs that are contained within the $62.9 million. So obviously there's soft costs that you back out, now you have hard construction costs. So how much is attributed to renovation, how much is attributed to new construction, and then there's probably some light remodeling, site work, and so forth. So I think the first thing to do is to get a better grasp and understanding of what are those pieces of the pie, how they fit together. Then we can begin to tell you, you can see the relationship, how much are you spending on new versus existing? And I think that'll be enlightening, it always is.
Questions for Lady Allen?
Well, thank you all.
And if you can send that to me electronically, that'd be great.
It's yours right there.
What's that?
It's easy, you keep it.
Oh, okay. All right.
As opposed to me reaching back there and figuring out where, and then plugging your board meeting.
Thank you very
Good to
much.
see you. Good to see you. Thank you all very much for the time. Appreciate it.
Gotta do this.
Thank you. Had a nice conversation with your daughter and your husband about that. Yeah.
Thanks for being back.
Welcome to the board.
Okay, if I may continue. We're just getting warmed up. We do have a few things here that need to be, in my mind, need to be hashed out. We've got, and let's just jump down to item G. Discussion and motion possibly for a revised facility use request template and fee schedule. We've had, I think in 2010 was maybe the last time we looked at the schedule as far as the cost, and I'm talking about the rental of our gymnasiums. We have in board policy now with our Neola approval in December, we have policy that says essentially if there's any staff member that's going to have any kind of personal gain, monetary gain, then there's a certain level of onus on the board to make sure that, number one, we have a tight, strict control over that. I'll tell you we don't right now, to be quite honest. In addition to our facility use, we don't have a strict enough, in my opinion, a strict enough policy on that. We have a lot of coaches who do a lot of great things, a lot of ECA sponsors and co-curricular sponsors that do a lot of great things with our students, with West Clark students. But we also have a lot of coaches and a lot of co-curricular sponsors that do a lot of things with non-West Clark students. And when they're using our facilities for non-West Clark students for personal gain that doesn't go directly back, all of the proceeds going directly back into their respective programs, I would say that that's where we're loose. That's where we are lax in assessing a fee. We already have the fee structure. We already have the fee schedule. Now I would ask for some discussion and consideration on making that essentially 3 or 4 columns, answering some questions. If a coach is only working and doing things for West Clark students only, and there is a fee, does that fee and all those proceeds go directly back into the program? If that's a yes, then I would recommend something where the fee is waived. I'm talking about, a good example would be a biddy ball program. If you have a biddy ball program and it's $30 a kid and all of that money goes right back into the athletic fund, that's a situation where my recommendation and my thoughts would be that doesn't require any type of we need a facility use request, we need a schedule so we know when the gym's being used. but we don't necessarily have to charge the rental of that gymnasium. I would recommend you don't, because it's benefiting West Clark kids. Secondary column may look like, yes, absolutely.
What if that went just into the basketball program versus, you said the athletic program?
If it went, no, well, I think that's where the athletic director is a good point. If I'm the basketball coach and I'm putting all of that effort into the basketball program and it's $30 a kid and I've got 100 kids in there, that $3,000 in my mind should go to the basketball program. I have no problem with that. No problem. That will be the athletic director and the coaches to make that work.
Some do it both ways.
Yes.
I knew they did, I just didn't, just kind of felt like most of the programs are underfunded, so that's one way they use it.
Absolutely, it's a big fundraiser for them, absolutely, and I think it's something, it's a feeder program too, it builds your program. Success breeds success, you've got to pique those kids' interest at a young age. So I'm all for that, and that's not just athletic, that would be co-curricular, theater, camps, and all of the things. The second column might be, okay, if it's West Clark, but it's also non-West Clark kids, and there is a fee. If it's, how much? If there's 100 West Clark kids and 50 non-West Clark kids, then I think you set up some sort of a prorated rental for us recouping some of that energy loss or energy use for our facilities. And then we also need to have a very strict guideline on reserving that gym space. I think what I'm hearing from a lot of our athletic directors and principals is the gyms are being used all the time, and it's not always for the pecking order that it should be for. I make myself clear there on there should be that pecking order. So I think that falls on the athletic directors and the principals to say you get your schedule built with West Clark students and West Clark activities and West Clark functions first, and then you see how many events you have, how many weekends and how many dates and evenings you have available for all of our facilities. Third column might look like, okay, you've got, and both of those, I should say, both column 1 and column 2, there's no personal gain to the coach or to the sponsor. Column 3 would be essentially, there is a personal gain to the coach. But there's also a donation, perhaps. It also goes to, to personal gain. You're going to pay some of your other coaches. You're going to pay yourself a stipend to do this, but you're also going to buy X, Y, or Z for the program. That's where I think there has to be that flexibility. And okay, what are we going to charge for the use of that facility? Whether it be a gymnasium, whether it be a field, whether whatever that looks like. What's that fee going to be? The fourth would be obviously the opposite end of the spectrum, where it's open. There is no donation back to any program. It's essentially it's a personal gain. It's private lessons. It's those types of things where it's strictly a monetary gain. It needs to be, in my opinion, it needs to be a staff member first, and then if you have somebody who's not a staff member who wants to come in and try to use your facility for monetary gain, that's the lowest of the low on the pecking order, because if there's an evening available and there's a gym or a field available and you've got somebody wanting to do hitting instruction, let's say, and it's somebody that's not one of our coaches and they're going to get monetary financial gain, number one, they're only getting the times that are available after we've already filled our schedules. Number two, because it's that column 4, there's going to be a much higher rate for the actual use and rental of those facilities. Right now, I'm telling you guys, it's loose. I can't describe how loose it is, and I think it sends the wrong message. So I think it has to be. This is one of the things that it has to be across all 3 campuses. It has to be something that we strictly enforce. It's going to fall on me and the gentlemen in this room to make sure that the principals and athletic directors are following whatever protocols, whatever procedures we put in place. I'm not asking for a board policy. What I'm really asking for is the approval for you all to give me, Mr. Brillhart, the athletic directors, the principals, John and Mac, the autonomy to bring you something that has 4 columns, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 3. Let's have some discussion on what that can look like, and then we can put this in play for, in my opinion, the end of the school year that starts the summer and then into 17-18 school year.
I'd like to touch base a little bit further on, and not so much cost. It kind of does go back to this as far as costs for the sports after their seasons are over. I know from past experience, when basketball season's over, the gym time's basically done for basketball. You got spring season coming in, there's days that baseball needs gymnasium time. There's track teams that needs gymnasium times, and I know personally on this campus, it's after other things have been scheduled, and instead of those being priorities scheduled, anybody outside the campus that would fall within this, they get what's left. You know, for me, it's baseball and track needs dry weather spots, and sometimes that's the only place it is inside. So I think our fees are probably too low, you know, as far as using the gym time, because we know there is some activities in our gymnasiums that some people make $1 from that's not going back into the program. You can say, well, I'm renting the space, but who's really benefit from renting the space?
I will tell you, most of the time, I can only think of 2 times I've actually gotten a fee, even though it's written that way, because usually it's been waived. The only thing we usually get, we're pretty good about getting a certificate of insurance when we know about it. And we're good at catching the overtime, which we have to charge. We have to have somebody at the facility if it goes past their normal working time. Otherwise, there's nobody there to watch what's going on.
Well, I think that would go back to holding the building head responsible for that and the athletic directors.
Absolutely.
And this is gonna step on toes, because we're talking about locking badges out and saying, oh, how come I can't get in here because you don't have permission?
I think you're primarily talking about inside facilities, those are measurable. Here's some things I think you need to consider. Number one, you mentioned big ball, what you call it. If you're expecting your coaches to build their programs, and then, so they go out and recruit a bunch of little kids to come in, they're gonna need to be paid, and their staff's gonna need to be paid. So the biddy ball does, you know, pay for that supervision. Secondly, I just know from where I live, it's not unusual to see a dad show up at the baseball field and want to throw the ball to his kid. I don't think we should pay for that.
No, these are public facilities, and I think there's a line. I think this is where it's an event. I mean, there's ticket sales.
Right.
You know, there's
I'm
things.
I'm just saying, I think
Sure.
as you
Oh, absolutely.
articulate through that process, remember, it would be impossible to measure those type of things.
Sure.
We're taking more when it's a whole group
Right.
and that kind of thing. But I mean, an individual who goes out and uses, I mean, that, it's like using the playground.
We hear it a lot. A scenario where what do you mean I can't have the gym from 6 to 8 tomorrow evening? Why? Well, someone's doing a private lesson. Wait a minute. We've got a team in season that needs the gym. I've got an issue with that. I mean, I think that's that pecking order, and that's the situation that I think we need to have that. And that means if we have an issue with it, and it's what we've always done, change is great, you go first. That means we limit the badge access and we run somebody off. Get ready, because you guys will get calls, you guys will get emails.
Well, I think if you have it outlined, I mean, I don't know if you want to call it a policy or if you want to call it just, I think it needs to be written.
Administrative guidelines,
For those
absolutely.
to reference to when you say, no, this is our practice, that, I mean, if you have it outlined and written, that's.
And we'll go somewhat slow. I'm not talking about pulling the rug out from somebody next week. But as we do this, I think this needs to be a policy or a protocol, administrative guidelines that everyone knows, everyone's bought into, and then we strictly start enforcing this. So I'm just asking for permission to start bringing.
Yeah, I'd like to see some stuff. I'm not in favor of people using the facilities for personal gain myself. I mean, to make $1 for themselves, I think that's wrong. And if it's helping the program, whatever, I think that's great. But as far as making money personally, I don't, we pay our coaches. And we have stuff in summer programs that maybe we need to pay them more, maybe, but I think that's hard to let someone use the facilities that's just for personal gain.
Okay, well, I'll put something together probably share it with you and at least give it to you on the 25th, and then maybe look at trying to tweak that by spring break, have something that we can then market and disseminate out.
Working with the athletic director.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I've been meeting with the ADs, we have a monthly meeting, over lunch, and we'll talk about, like Mr. Guernsey just mentioned, we talk about the ECA stipends and where we are compared to area districts, where we'd like to be, compared with area districts. That's bargainable, that's negotiations with our WCTA Teachers Association. We all know that, we all understand that, but we also talk about a lot of other things, and this is one of the topics that continually comes up. We talk about transportation and the cost of that. We talk about coaches' responsibilities, athletic code of conduct. I know, Joe, it's not been that long ago, we talked about an athletic code of conduct and random drug and alcohol testing for all of our, not just our athletes, but our ECAs. That's something that we're talking about, trying to, through administrative guideline, try to bring something for the board to approve implementation of 17-18 school year. So we have a lot of conversations, but this facility use request, this is not Chad bringing this to you. This is a concern that's been brought to me by the athletic directors. And it's also been a concern of MAC, because for every time we don't have a sheet of paper with a certificate of insurance, we are extremely liable.
We're liable.
Especially if we know about it and we don't take action to limit that. Okay, I think we've talked, a lot about, and we've got item F, discussion motion for an RFP for a marketing consultant. Hearing what we heard from Mr. Halleck, and hearing what we've invited him to come back on the 25th, and hearing about the what might go in parallel for renderings and things. Are you ready to talk about a marketing consultant? Are you ready to put out an RFP for something along those lines? Do you feel like we've got maybe people that we've heard from that could do some of that for us, and then when we decide on a referendum timeline and date, then we go with the marketing? You tell me. We spent $6,500 on the telephone survey with Winston Terrell. Okay, the Winston Terrell survey results I sent to you guys again this month. We also have an internal, Tony's done some internal Google surveys. At the community input sessions, we have those results. We've spent $12,000 about in 14 and 15, fall of 14, fall and winter of 14, spring of 15. That was with Covert Hawkins. That was $12,500 for a feasibility study at that point in time. And then in May of 2016, that was the performance services. That was $29,500. So I think that's $48,500 is what we've totaled in. If you call it consultant work, you can call it that, but we've not had marketing to this point.
What sort of dollars?
Other than the $6,500 with.
What sort of dollars are you with us? Talking about marketing.
Well, I think it's going to depend on your scope and your timeline, but Winston Terrell gave us that dollar amount of just shy of $50,000, $47,000, $45,000 to do the work of what they bundle as their referendum suite of services. Now that's how much it's going to cost. I can bring you a couple others. There's a few others in that arena. Steve Klink is one. I don't know if that's dependent upon just a standard what they do, or if it's dependent upon the size of your district, and I don't know. But I can reach out to and put out an RFP for that if you'd like to at least entertain proposals. You don't have to accept them, but if you want an RFP for marketing consulting and you want it to start in March, we probably need to do the RFP now, review them in February, and then you enter into a contract and they start services in March. So if you want to start in April, we can wait a month. If you want to start in May, we can wait 2 months. That's kind of the process.
Would the marketing consultant work with this group that was here talking about the renderings? Is that how that all works together?
Well, yes. Now, when they were talking about the renderings, I was with Southwest DuBois. I'll be honest, they had a guy by the name of John Clark. Always wore a sweater, big guy, great communicator. He did the clickers and he was at all the community input sessions. He was their marketing internal. That was with Fanning Howie. We as the district, when I was at Southwest DuBois, we did not have and hire a marketing firm. We did have a referendum, and it was the only referendum that passed. We had $39 million on the table. It got carved down to 22.5, and it was still a 55-45 split. So, by referendum terms, that's a pretty successful referendum vote, but we didn't have a marketing firm. But yes, if you hire a marketing firm, they're going to work side by side with these groups. And Once these groups are on board and the district has to go silent, these guys do the work. They work with the political action campaign. You heard Mike Shipp mention that CARE group is what it was called. I don't know, I'm trying to think of what the acronym stood for. They actually had established 6 months before I got there. And the CARE group was made up of parents, it was made up of some students, it was made up of some retired teachers, but it was about 30 strong, and they met monthly, and for about a year strong. They took field trips to other facilities. We went to Franklin. You heard Jim Hallett talk about Franklin. We saw that $130 million high school. We saw what was the old high school that they converted to the middle school, because that was more within our range of dollars that we were going to be able to spend at the time. We went to Mill Creek. We went to Mill Creek. We went to several. We interviewed 3 firms and took tours of all of their recent facility work that they had done. That was a part of the CARE group's responsibilities. And then from that CARE group, there was 1 or 2 individuals that carried a lot of water. They became the quasi political action committee president, if you will. They are also, that gentleman also happened to be on the holding corporation for the district. So he had a lot of information. He had a lot of factual information. He was well respected in the community, and he did carry a lot of water. But he was not paid. It was all pro bono. He was not a marketer. He was not with a marketing firm. He was just a concerned dad, softball volunteer coach, insurance salesman by day and trade. But he could sell ice to an Eskimo, and everybody needed to buy it.
I think going into a referendum, I'm thinking we need to have a marketing consultant to help us do that. You look at Floyd County, and you see them try it one time, and I talked to Fred McWhorter, their controller, their CFO, and I said, what's the one mistake, what would you say the number 1 mistake is that you made going into that the first time? He said, we didn't hire a consultant to help us do that, prepare for that, plan to do that very strategically and thoughtfully. And they did it the second time around. They hired the group, and it passed. So if you want to compare with or without, I think that's a prime example right next door to us.
So what are they marketing? What are they marketing? What, I mean, are we marketing the
Project or the corporation as a whole?
They did some surveys. Here's some of the things that and I've just seen these because I think this is a flyer that now they were behind the brains of this. They were behind, okay, this is the picture we want. You can see, okay, this is a good one. I don't know if y'all can see that. This is New Albany Floyd's safety first. You know, I think Mr. Gillenwater said it. Safety sells. Safety is one of those that everybody can resonate with. Everybody knows we've got some safety issues across all 3 campuses. New Albany Floyd had safety issues, and this is what one of their flyers looks like. It's got kids dressed as safety personnel, and it talks all through here about safety and how safety is important. That's one of the examples. This was about measuring up. So this is about, and again, you're going to see. Ensure all local schools measure up. This talks about school safety and repairs, local classrooms and labs, includes fiscal safeguards, talks about no increase in taxes. At some point, Winston Terrell is who they used, did research, and there must have been something out in the New Albany Floyd County community that thought that somehow the state could take away money. So here's one of the things underneath fiscal safeguards, and this was in a couple of their flyers. All funds stay in our local schools, and not 1 penny can be taken away by the state. So somewhere their research showed that there were pockets of people, maybe they were on the fence of whether they would vote yes or no, that they felt like the state could come in and take funding or take money away from this project. So they strategically marketed. I mean, these bullet points were not just put together by accident. These were things that Winston Terrell, as the consultant. Now, did the district pay for these? No. And you have to go dark. You cannot use district money. Did the district use printers or copies? No, you can't do any of that. This was a political action campaign that paid for those.
That brings up my other question is, and we've had this discussion before about this. Why does the school corporation, if we have to go silent, why does the school corporation have to pay for this marketing? That should be the PAC or the community that's out there wanting to support this. And that's exactly what Floyd County did. The corporation didn't pay for this.
Yes, they did. They absolutely did. You can call Fred McWhorter and you can ask him yourself. They absolutely paid for it.
Up to the point that they had to go dark.
They paid $45,000, they paid $15,000 a month, $15,000 a month for 3 months, then they went silent and the PAC took over. So they paid for this firm to come in and say, and help communicate to the community, to get the buy-in from the community members to understand, again, with renderings and, you know, to help communicate why it's important, you know, from an educational standpoint, we need to do these projects. So that's what they do. That's their line of work. I mean, I want to say Winston Terrell's done what now, 12, 13 across the state, and they've maybe now at this point 12 or 13 have passed. Because
When they
they're very
presented us, they lost
intentional.
one.
And it's about explaining to the community, yes, this is an investment in your children. This building that we're going to build, look, see the renderings, see this piece that we're adding and that part that we're adding. This is an investment in our children and their educational environment. That's what they do.
So the marketing consultant, that's something we not necessarily have to work on tonight as far as passing it, because we've got to decide what's our time frame that we're looking at.
Yeah, I think, and you may not, if you're gonna do the strategic plan, Mr. Gilliwater and I talked, and you all know, you've seen the timeline for a May referendum and a November referendum. If you're gonna spend even 30 days on a strategic plan, the timeline for a May referendum is gonna pass you by. It's gonna be gone. So if you're gonna do 60, 90 days of strategic planning, get architectural renderings, discuss whether or not, as a board, you wanna go through with a marketing campaign, you're looking at a November of 17 or a May of 18. I think that's the timeline. And I think you may not be able to answer that definitively until you've done all of the strategic plan work and you see exactly how much there's going to be involved in community input sessions and looking at the architectural renderings and how much fervor there is. I think that'll be the litmus. But I don't think we're going to be able to look at a May unless you want to test the water. Now,
But if you test the water, then you gotta wait 12 months for sure, right?
Yep. 12 months. So on the agenda though, it says a motion for RFPs for marketing consultant. Can we at least do that tonight?
I can put yeah, absolutely. If you want to make a motion to tell me to put together an RFP, I'll bring it to you on January. You guys, or I'll send it to you. You can take a look at the RFP, and then just like Tom's going to for those 3 lighting projects that you may or may not decide to do, we'll put an RFP together that says this is what we really want. Do you want me to say for a November, a possible November timeline?
Well, that's one of the items on here, right?
Right.
Discuss that.
It is.
So,
Me personally, I don't think we're ready for May. I don't know what the rest of the board thinks.
Not if we're gonna go through the strategic planning process. You know, I don't have a problem doing the RFP. I guess, to me, though, the question of hire would be, obviously, kind of to Brian's point is, what are they marketing? To me, hopefully, the result of the strategic plan is we have a plan, and that's what they're marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't necessarily come on board until we have a plan. So, you know, as long as they understand with the RFP that it may be 30 days, 60 days before we know what we're doing.
And I think, not to speak for any other firm, but I think when we heard from Winston Terrell last, they said typically our fee of that $45,000 covers a 6 to 9 month period of time.
Okay.
so I'd like to make a motion to solicit RFPs for marketing consultant.
We have a motion on the floor to do, we have a second. We have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, the same?
Nay.
4-1.
Okay.
So again, I'd like to explain that real
Oh,
quick.
absolutely.
Because again, I don't know, we still don't know what we're marketing at all. We don't know what we're gonna do. And I understand that's just a request for a proposal, I understand that, but I think we still have to get some kind of plan together that we know exactly what we're gonna do.
That's the reason why
Yeah.
the end, the information will just be up front, not so much that we're hiring a firm to
I understand that.
give them.
So D, referendum timeline. I think what I'm hearing is
I'm
that,
thinking fall.
All we need to know tonight is whether it's gonna be made.
that's right, that's right. If it,
And you can decide when it's gonna be later, but if it, just need to know if it's gonna be made, and I'm hearing that it's not gonna be made, so that's all we really have to know tonight.
yeah. Okay. Okay, now, in your package you had, for C and B, going back up the list here, discussion regarding your student transfer policy, it's in your packet. And I think along with student transfer policy, now this is more discussion, to be quite honest. I'm not looking for a motion tonight. I don't think Dr. Reed is looking for any of that. I don't think the board is probably, I think you need to mill this over. But you do have the data. You have the capacity enrollment data. You have the number of students that are currently out of district inside of that data. You have what I come up with to set those enrollment figures in place was a 25-to-1 in grades K and 1, 30-to-1 in grades 2 through 6, depending upon what building configuration you are in. If you're at the middle school, we look at going 30-to-1 in 6, 7, and 8. If you're in junior high at Henryville and Borden, we look at going 32-to-1 in that setting. So that's how I came up with those available numbers. That's on the current status quo. That does not have us adding any staff member. Okay, that's with looking at our current core teachers. Now, you can argue, well, you know, you've got more core teachers here or there, and you've got different constraints at each building. Absolutely, that's why it's a discussion. That's why I put that together for you all. But if you look at what you have in your packet and you look at that enrollment report that you all have had, I think that is the biggest piece. Well, it's not the biggest piece. That's the real-time data. Another piece of real-time data that is in there is what Mac provided to you guys. It looks like this. It's in your packet in your green folder. It's essentially what happens, the what if. You know, you heard these guys, I think all of them talked about dollars following the scholar. And out-of-district transfers, the number of out-of-district transfers we have, what that has done with our cash balance and what that continues to allow us to do in this district where, quite honestly, our foundation funding is less than Clarksville's a lot. It's less than Greater Clark's. It's less than New Albany Floyd's. Our AV is less than 2 of those 3. We have a higher AV than Clarksville, but not by much. We have a lower foundation funding mark in this district. Now, the state, through their tuition supports, trying to balance that, but we are still playing catch-up. And when dollars follow the scholar, this sheet becomes vital. If you look at our cash balance now, you know, we got about just a little north of 10 million in cash balance. You look at our cash balance and you look at our tuition support. Now, Matt can talk a little bit about that, but he's made some assumptions, but he's been conservative in those assumptions. If you look at 17, 18, 19, 20, 20, and 2021, if our ADM goes down, and you may look at, okay, how's our enrollment going down? Well, if we don't replace our outgoing out-of-district transfers, and they're not being replaced.
That's just at this campus.
That's right, and they're not being replaced with others from out-of-district, and they're not being replaced from growth in district. If you see a loss of those numbers, you can see our foundation amount. MAC has held that steady. It may go up a little bit, but it's not going to go up tremendously. The state's not going to give us what Hamilton and give us what Fort Wayne Allen. They're not going to give us those levels. So $5,088 is our foundation amount. You look at our tuition support, you look at the total from the state, and then you look at the lost revenue. Over the next 4 years, we're projected to lose about $750,000. And you may say, well, that's making the assumption that we lose 40 kids a year. That's the number of transfers that we have in grades 12, 11, 10, and 9. Those are the numbers we know are going to drop.
And assuming no other growth at all.
Okay, so that's an important sheet for you all. Now, again, I'm not looking for a motion tonight. I'm just wanting you all to make sure that you have probably the most vital pieces of information is this, the enrollment sheet that Mr. Basham's got right there. That talks about the available slots, and then the transfer policy itself. We need we need you all to, I think, to be open-minded more than anything else in having that discussion for us to tell you and to bring you the wants. I've already got my principals wanting to build schedules now. The guidance counselors, this is when they start building schedules, and they're all going to have wants, they're all going to have wishes, they're all going to have staff needs that they want to approach us with. And honestly, in order for me to tell them maybe, not a yes, but a maybe on anything, we're going to have to be able to make a decision no later than the February special work session, no later than the end of February. And that's probably a little, that's more in advance than what we were last year, but I'd like to have something even as a work session discussion in January that we might be able to take a look at our policy sample that Dr. Reed gave us for transfers, and then let's hash that out. So ideally, if there's 20 available slots in second grade at Silver Creek Elementary, that's just figures that I'm just pulling out arbitrarily. But if that's the number, and we have 32 transfer forms that come in, you've got to do a lottery. You put a start time of when you start accepting them, you put an end time of when you've got to have them in by, and if that grade level exceeds your available slots, you have to have a lottery. We need to spell that out. If that same scenario, we got 20 spots and only 15 transfer requests come in, you take all 15 and you've got 5 left.
But once they're in, they're in. They don't have to do that every year, but they're in.
Once that's something else for policy. Right now,
Yeah.
that's a piece to that. Once they're in, and so are their future siblings. That can certainly stay. I think that's I would recommend that. That once you take them, you know you're taking them for the long haul. I don't think that's fair otherwise, but I do think that would be my recommendation. We take a look at that enrollment report. You take a look at the potential lost revenue. And then you tell me, and you tell Mac and John and Tom, what is it that you all would like for us to make this policy look like? Because it's going to take then us marketing that out.
Well, you've already drafted it, right?
We've got it.
With your
Yes, Dr. Reed
recommended
put a
policy.
draft together and gave it back
Yeah.
in December.
And we all got that, right. So the enrollment report where you listed out the available slots for 17-18, is that the projected available slots?
That's if we're all okay with those student-to-teacher ratios that are on that report. If you want to lessen the student-teacher ratios, then obviously you're going to lessen some of the slots. Or if you want to tweak it by campus, we can figure, we can play around with those figures. But what I've said is 25-1 in our primary grades, 30-1 in our intermediate, essentially, and 30 or 32-1 in our secondary level.
So I think that's where it's important for obviously the principals and even the parents to understand that in allowing these slots to be filled, yes, it might at this time, because of our facilities, make those ratios a little bit higher, but at the end of the day, it is helping our bottom line, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it allows for those 21st century ideas, those things and innovations that, the likes of Mr. Eckert, Mr. Crabtree, Mrs. Myers, Todd Balmer's in here now as an administrator. I don't know if I see any other administrators in the room. Who?
Mr. Kane.
Oh, Mr. Kane is hidden. There he is. He is completely hidden. Mrs. Barnett had him hidden. So they're bringing me ideas. Hey, they see the data that comes in. They see the rubber meets the road with them and their staff, and they're wanting different things. Primarily, they're wanting, it's about people, not programs. In some instances, since I've become the superintendent, I felt like we needed a lot more support staff. I will tell you that if we don't look at doing something with our transfer policy, and we see a $750,000 loss, I will be bringing to you all, unfortunately, I'll be bringing to you all a hiring freeze, and through attrition, no replacements of some of
The
those.
transfer policy was, when we froze transfers, we said no new transfers, but we could replace what we lost. And we're not replacing what we lost according to your numbers.
We're not. We're not.
We just put freeze. Yeah, I know.
It was a freeze that was
I thought the freeze was.
It was a freeze.
I thought the freeze was at this number, not at.
Well, the demographic study that we had done with the Performance Services feasibility study, that, if you remember, the demographer said, okay, based on the next 6-year projections, we are assuming, the big assumption was we are assuming that you replace those that go out.
Right.
Your out of districts that
That's
go
what I
out, you
thought.
replace with
That's what
those.
we decided. Okay.
No,
Are
we've
there
been-
any other school corporations around that you know of that are on a freeze?
They all want to.
And I think it needs, honestly, I think it needs to be strategic, and if we've made any mistake, it's in history, it's historical that we opened up the floodgates, and it was a great problem to have, guys. I mean, you had countless students, 75 to 80 for a district our size, that were coming in every year when foundation funding, because of the recession, was somewhat contrite and constrict. That was a great thing for us. I mean, we were growing leaps and bounds. We were able to do some things and hire staff, and we were able to continue with programming. We didn't have to think about laying off a teacher. We didn't have to think about shutting down a building or going black in a building and not having it used anytime after school, because there's districts that have had to do a lot of things, penny pinching ideas. And Mac, I'll tell you, Mac's a guru. Mac is wonderful for this district and what he's been able to do. But it's been the people out in this audience and the people in our buildings that have made it work. But that has been done because of the great problem we had. If there was an issue, if there was a mistake made, it was that we did not take a look on an annual basis and say strategically, okay, this is what our facilities are going to look like currently, this is what they're going to look like in 3 to 5 years or 10 years, this is what we need to do with those out-of-district policies, or out-of-district transfer policies. We didn't do that. But that's Monday morning quarterbacking. You know, at this point, I'm making a recommendation that we take a look at the data, we take a look at our available slots, we take a look at that policy, and no later than, preferably into January, but no later than February's meeting, we put pen to paper and we say to everyone in the community, this is what it's going to look like going forward, and then we brand that and we market that and we make sure we get the word out.
I did read the proposed policy. The transfer tuition, how is that gonna work? If it's a lottery, is there no transfer tuition?
There's no transfer tuition, that goes away. You essentially, dollars follow the scholar. So in that scenario, if you have 20 and there's a lottery for just those 20 kids, 20 families are happy, 5 are not, or 10, or it depends on how many apply for that. But you also, if you take one, you're taking the siblings. So that lottery might have a ripple effect. If you lottery one in 2nd grade, but they've got a kindergarten brother or sister, you've just lotteried that kindergarten brother or sister as well.
Is this our current?
The one that you all have in your packet is what Dr. Reed provided for as a sample to kind of mill over. Right now, our current policy says we're frozen. We're not taking any new right now.
I guess I'm just a little confused by this page that preceded the proposed. It talks about parents, guardians, custodians free to pay tuition, transfer tuition at a timely manner.
Yeah, look at your.
Okay.
You need the green one that's in here.
Yeah, the green one in your green folder is the. And this can be hashed out, but I definitely think we need to do that. We need to do it soon, because like I said, we've got.
Can we just add it to the agenda for the next meeting and do that?
You want to give us, if Mr. Halleck's coming in at 6:30, we start the meeting at 6. We can talk about that primarily in great detail. Okay, we'll do that.
This evening becomes part of the strategic plan, whatever. we're gonna
Sure. Okay. I presented the district boundary lines. You've got the enrollment data and capacity. It's been a long evening, but that's all I have for the board at this point in time. I'll entertain any questions or discussion.
I got about 45 minutes.
No, you got something else?
Well, I just wanted to, I don't know if we're gonna make a motion to end the meeting, but I did wanna bring up real quick, in the past meetings, the board passed a motion to hire a consultant, a financial consultant, to look at numbers with regards to dissolving the corporation. And I know that Chad presented some numbers, but I just wanted to throw it on the table as far as letting the public know where we are with that motion. Because actually the motion that passed was to hire a consultant to come in and look at those numbers.
I don't think we ever actually follow through with it.
No. Investigation and further discussion on the dissolvement of the financial impact of a dissolvement of the district.
I was the one pushing that, and the reason for that, and I'm still, to me, it's still on the table. To me, the issue is, we put together a strategic plan, and if it's not an acceptable plan that we can come to an agreement on as a board or community or whatever, then, is the other option, we all take our clothes and go home. We know how much difficult that's gonna be, Mr. Livermore pointed that out to us, but that is an option, so I don't wanna close that option out. I think it's, I think the numbers you gave us were very revealing, and that's all we need at this point. But, it's gonna be interesting when you ask the question, Crystal, if the guy, ever was not successful in putting together a group. We're pretty diverse in our opinions here, so it's gonna be a challenge for him. But I think it comes after that process, to me, to push it forward. But, I mean, it won't make anything different than just around there.
So we just leave it as an open.
Okay.
Would you looking for us to go ahead and hire that?
Nope, I'm just asking the question. I was at the meeting and I heard the motion pass, and so I was just asking it for clarification purposes for the rest of them.
Yeah, before there's a motion on the table to adjourn the meeting, this little thing over here on the top of that phone, we have been audio and video streaming our meeting. It's not live streaming. We don't want to tear down our firewall and have, anytime you do that, somebody can come in on the backside. So we're not going to do that, but it's going to be archived. It's going to be recorded. It's been recorded, the entire meeting. It's going to be posted. We're going to find out exactly the way that we want to do it. I think we've got a good idea where we might even be able to use YouTube. We can do two choices. It can be YouTube as a somewhat of a hidden link, or it can be something and it's non-searchable, but it's a link off of our website, or it can be YouTube where you search West Clark Community Schools January board meeting, and then you can search it on YouTube. Either way, it's going to be archived. It's going to be on our website moving forward. You'll see those. So, if you want to know what was said, you can go and see the audio and video stream. And we still will continue to post our meeting minutes after, the meeting minutes are always a month in arrears, okay? Meeting minutes that were approved and signed tonight were from December 8th. Those meeting minutes will be posted to the website tomorrow, but they're always a month in arrears because the board has to approve the meeting minutes from a prior board meeting.
And with that being said, we need a motion to adjourn. We have a motion to adjourn. We have a second.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you for attending.
Thanks for being here. Yeah.